What's up guys, it's Kristen here today with my review of The Crow Girl by Erik Axel Sund. So this is a very dark Swedish crime thriller novel that has recently been released in English, and it actually has two separate authors. Erik Axel Sund is a pen name of the two authors who put their names together, which are Jerker Eriksson and Hakan Alexander Sundquist. And I was sent this for a review by Nonf Publishing, but of course all of my opinions are my own, as you will soon come to see in this review. I've got a few bones to pick with this book. Also, this will be a spoiler-free review. It's difficult as that's going to be for me because I understand that this is a new release book. Not a lot of people have gotten around to reading it yet, but I do encourage anyone who wants to hear more spoilery detail to go check out Sophie from Portal in the Pages review. It is absolutely excellent and we have a lot of the same feelings about the book, but of course she is just way more eloquent than I could ever hope to be, so I will link her review down below. For a brief synopsis, the novel is set in Stockholm and it begins when the body of a young immigrant boy is found and the body has been mutilated. And the main character, Jeanette Kihlberg, is set as the detective on this case, but it becomes very clear immediately that the necessary time and resources are not going to be given to this case because it is the body of an immigrant or refugee. There's not going to be a lot of attention given to it, so Jeanette is going to be forced to fight her superiors tooth and nail the whole way in order to get it solved, because of course she really does care about the case. One of the other main characters that you get a perspective from is a psychologist named Sophia who had previous ties to the case, and so she is brought in for her expertise in certain areas and asked to put together kind of a profile of who the perpetrator could be, and she also develops a very close relationship with Jeanette. At the same time though, you are given the perspective of the murderer, though you do not know their identity, and as the novel goes on you are given more and more flashbacks into the perpetrator's history, so you understand a little bit more about their motivations, or at least supposedly. And as the novel goes on, more and more bodies are found under similar conditions, so it becomes clear to them that they have a serial killer on their hands. But before I get into my full review of this, I'm gonna have to put this book down because I don't know what kind of paper they used, but this is like literally twice the weight of a normal hardcover book of this size, and my arm is just dying. So I can't lie, this book didn't exactly live up to my expectations. I was very excited going into it, hearing comparisons to Stieg Larsson's Millennium Trilogy, and I loved the premise at the beginning of it that it was this refugee or immigrant boy, and that's why nobody cared about the case, because that is just so pertinent to what we're dealing with today with the current refugee crisis, and you can only imagine what these refugees have to go through, not only escaping a war zone, but then on top of that, the very few international laws that are put in place to protect refugees are rarely observed, so you can just imagine what the horrors that they must go through. That is definitely not the focus of the book. It is very much a psychological thriller getting into the mind of the killer, but more so the fact that the killer has a very specific mental illness, which I realized that I cannot reveal because it would be a very large spoiler, which also happens to be one of my biggest problems with the book, in that I feel that the mental illness was used as a plot device. And from my very limited knowledge of this mental illness, I can say that certain parts were very accurate, surprisingly, but others were just completely off. And this is very important because of course we're trying to fight the stigma and the sensationalization of mental illness. Also, one of the biggest parts of the books is the incredible amount of graphic violence, and it specifically centers around sexual abuse, particularly of children. So fair warning to anybody before picking up this book that is incredibly dark, and I do not have a problem reading books with difficult subject matter or with a lot of violence, but of course they must be done well, and I don't feel that this was. These incredibly violent and disturbing scenes are told over and over and over again in the book. I couldn't even count how many of these scenes there are, which led me to feel that their only purpose was shock value. I don't understand when you tell me that this character did this horrific act, that they are a child molester, that they are a murderer. Why did they need to show you that same character doing the exact same thing many times over the entire course of the book? I don't think that the book was particularly well written, and I know I always go on and on about how much I love beautiful writing, but I really don't go into a murder mystery book looking for beautiful prose. I go into it looking for great atmosphere, for a page turner that I feel like I cannot put down, and I don't think that The Crow Girl really delivered on any of these. I'm really confused how it was originally a trilogy, because it's not this roller coaster ride that I'm at least used to with other murder mystery thriller books. It's more of an incredibly slow climb to the end that doesn't feel like it was worth it after 767 pages, and it almost felt incredibly rushed at the end. There's lots of storylines left completely unexplained, just dropped off and abandoned. They're constantly over-explaining how a character is feeling, like they're trying to hammer it home that somebody is frustrated, that they are upset about something, that they are feeling a certain way, when of course you could deduce that by the situation that is happening to them. I don't know if this is a combination of maybe not the best translation, but also the fact that there are, like I said, two separate authors and they have a lot of inconsistencies throughout the book, as if they did not compare notes with each other. So in the end, after reading almost 800 pages, I was just left feeling completely unsatisfied, and that I had unnecessarily read a lot of incredibly disturbing subject matter that I'm never going to be able to get out of my head. But I'm not going to say that this is the absolute worst book I've ever read. Like, nobody pick it up, I'm warning you now, because obviously I did make it through this nearly 800 pages, so something was keeping me intrigued. I did want to find out who was doing these murders. I did really want to understand all the motivations behind everything, so I can see why it is getting a lot of good reviews and what certain people would enjoy about it. It was just definitely not the book for me. And as always, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, especially if you have read this book already and you agree with me, disagree with me. Please, I would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!